Guys, so I got another speed test comparison video. This time we're looking at the XA versus the XA Ultra. So I'll be covering benchmarks, specs, all that. And we're going to go ahead and start off by powering both these on at the same time. Now both these have metal frames. So the sides made of metal. And you have the power button, volume rocker, camera button. Pretty similar. Micro USB at the bottom. And then you have a flap for SIM card, micro SD card, and headphone jack at the top. And on the back, both these are made out of polycarbonate, although they are pretty good material. Definitely better than some of the polycarbonate that Sony's used in the past. Both are running Marshmallow, and we'll be covering more of the specs throughout the video. Of course, the most notable of that, bigger screen on the XA Ultra, 6 inches and 1080p versus 5 inches, 720p. Alright, so we'll get right to it. Let me just make sure everything's closed out. Alright, going to start off with Temple Run 2. Now I expect the XA Ultra to do a little bit better. It does have slightly better internals. Now both have a MediaTek P10 Helio processor, although the XA Ultra does have an extra gigabyte of RAM, 3 versus 2. And you see right there, a little bit faster loading up the game. Alright, next up is going to be weather. Save Chrome for later. Again, faster on the XA Ultra. Let's do settings. Again, faster on the XA Ultra. It's going to be themed throughout the video, I think. iFunny. Same result. YouTube. Once again, XA Ultra doing better. Let's do Spotify. Same exact result. Calculator. Pretty close there. Clock. Alright, little faster again. ESPN. So again, faster on the XA Ultra. And then, alright, so another game, we're going to do Asphalt 8. Now, just in terms of some of the other specs. So the XA Ultra is one of the best front-facing cameras on any smartphone. Possibly the best front-facing camera. 16 megapixels OIS, flash, all that. And then the XA Ultra, now so is a pretty good front-facing camera, 8 megapixels, but obviously not as good. Let's see. So the back-facing camera, 21.5 megapixels on the XA Ultra versus 13 on the XA. So again, a little faster on the XA Ultra here. Alright, we'll look at album next. Same result. Let's look at eBay. Alright, so, well, actually loaded up a little faster on the XA with the pictures. So I think I won that round. And then let's look at CNN. Alright, so again, XA Ultra doing very well in the speed test. And versus the other phones, versus like the X Performance, S7 Edge, the XA Ultra did very well. Alright, we'll snap a few pictures. Actually, yeah. Alright, let me make sure these are on similar settings here. Yeah, I think that might be the closest we can get it. 16 megapixels, 6. Actually, yeah, we'll just leave it on the max. So they don't have many options for pictures. Alright. Now I know a lot of you guys have been asking about battery. So it's 2300 on the XA versus 2700 on the XA Ultra. And I gotta say, I think that the XA Ultra battery is definitely better. Obviously you would think that, it's not a big difference and the XA Ultra has a bigger screen, but it seems to me to be working pretty well. The XA's battery I don't think is very good. Alright, so snapping a few pictures. Actually, a little faster on the XA. Of course, it's less megapixels on the XA. Again, 13 versus 21.5. Alright, but the XA won that. Before I get to Chrome, I'll just play some music sample. Now, both these have a speaker at the bottom, but the XA's is very loud. Or the XA Ultra, rather, very loud. That was the XA Ultra. So honestly, neither of the speakers are that good. I don't think the quality is that great on either one of them, but the XA Ultra is definitely better just because it's louder. Alright, and finally let's go into Chrome. Now both of these are more mid-range phones, so there's some features that they lack, like waterproofing, fingerprint scanners that a lot of the high-end phones have. Alright, so pretty close there. I think we'll faster on the XA Ultra. Let's go to Yahoo. Alright, clear winner there. We'll do Nintendo. Alright, so actually we'll faster on the XA there. We'll do a few more. We'll do CNN. Alright, so again, faster on the XA Ultra. 2 or 3 so far. We'll do one more. Let's do IGN. Alright, so clearly faster there. Alright, so just to recap, I think the XA Ultra clearly won. Now, both these, again, they're a lot cheaper than flagship phones. I think that the XA price is pretty good at $250, although I think that the XA Ultra price is even better at $330. Again, because clearly the XA Ultra won this test. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the screen is better. Now, both of them are edge-to-edge, but the XA Ultra does have an extra inch. Front-facing camera better, rear-facing camera better, battery certainly better. So I think overall there's a lot of advantages with the XA Ultra. Oh yeah, and then also both these have 16 gigabytes internal storage. It does have micro SD card support, so you definitely need that. A little unfortunate, it's only 16 gigabytes, but again, you do have that option. So again, guys, I think both these are good deals, but I think that the XA Ultra is a little bit better deal. If you're into smaller phones, if you want to save a little money, then I suggest the XA. But overall, for most people, I would suggest the XA Ultra. Alright guys, thanks again for watching. Please subscribe if you aren't already, and let me know in the comments what video you want to see next.